Okay. So welcome everybody. I really appreciate all of your help for the 2021 Elegant Trogon survey of Southeast Arizona. I'm Jenny McFarland with the Tucson Audubon Society, and this is our gathering for all the volunteers who helped with this huge, extensive survey effort, where we're going to go over what happened, the data, how the Trogons sort of spaced out over the landscape in this rather unusual year, and then look at some photos that all of you folks submitted and go over, just sort of have a little chatter. Then everyone can unmute and we'll talk about sort of anything that happened that was fun or interesting, or just sort of, that you want to share that happened during the survey. So let me share my screen real quick. I don't have a formal presentation or anything. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that happened for our survey. So can you guys see that okay? You've seen the Important Bird Areas website? So the first thing I just wanted to touch on briefly is that we had a lot of help with these Trogon surveys. It takes a lot to pull off such a huge survey effort. And we had 70 people help with this survey this year. And it is over three weekends, 5 different survey mornings of 5 different mountain ranges in Southeast Arizona. And this is actually a huge effort that happens in Southeast Arizona. And it's one of the biggest survey events of the year for the Arizona Important Bird Areas program. So I know we had some folks who helped us this year with the Elegant Trogon survey, where this was their first year helping with the survey. So and many of you already know this, but I did want to touch on this briefly, that the Arizona Important Bird Areas program is a statewide bird conservation program that is co-coordinated by the Tucson Audubon Society and Audubon Southwest, so a state office of the National Audubon Society. But it's actually a much bigger program than that. So right here I'm showing the website of the Arizona Important Bird Areas program. We do have a sort of About AZIBA tab, and it tells a little bit about the program. And this is actually a global effort. So the international IBA, Important Bird Areas program, is headed up by BirdLife International in the United Kingdom. And they have well over 170 countries that participate in this program. And the whole purpose is to identify a network of sites of conservation areas, of habitats that are the most important to preserve bird populations into the future. So it's very conservation minded and international. And every single mountain range that we survey for Elegant Trogons is each their own important bird area. So there are 48 important bird areas in the state of Arizona, and 5 of them are these 5 mountain ranges. So the Santa Rita Mountains, the entire Coronado footprint of the Santa Rita Mountains is an IBA, as well as the Patagonia Mountains, much of Patagonia is, except for some of the private land. The Atascosa Highlands is quite a newly expanded IBA. It used to just be California Gulch and Sycamore Canyon, but it was relatively recently expanded to be the entire Atascosa Highlands. And data from things like these Elegant Trogon surveys contributed to these changes, these expansions of IBAs. And then the entire Huachuca Mountains is a huge IBA, and the Chiricahua Mountains as well. So each of these 5 mountain ranges, these Sky Island mountain ranges, is its own IBA. So I just want to make that really clear to everybody that these surveys are super fun, and we're the only group doing a census of Elegant Trogons anywhere in the United States. But they also really contribute to this larger overall global effort to monitor populations of birds internationally. So it's a very meaningful survey, and it has all these added benefits of sort of raising awareness of the Important Bird Areas programs, raising awareness of the fact that Sky Islands are important habitats for birds, but it also contributes a lot to the program itself. So the IBA program is generously funded by Arizona Game and Fish, and we do annual reports every year for them. And the Elegant Trogon survey is always a really lovely thing that we include in those reports. And all of your guys' volunteer time contributes directly to this program, because we list all that time and mileage that you guys, why we ask about that when you submit your data, contributes to the value of our grant. So we can show Game and Fish that all this amazing work happened, that we were able to have all of you folks contribute and got so much work done with their funding. So it's incredibly helpful to the larger Arizona Important Bird Areas program, but the data is also one of like the biggest, like the most flagship survey that we do. So thank you so much for helping with these surveys. And it's not only are we doing a really good job tracking Elegant Trogon data, it also is just doing so much to help the overall program. So I very much appreciate it. And it's one of my absolute favorite surveys of the year. So I did want to give all of you a sneak peek at the results of this year's Elegant Trogon survey. I know you guys have seen this to an extent where I did send this out for review, and I did get some feedback and we made some corrections in the data. So thank you very much. So this data has now been reviewed and proofed by you guys as the actual surveyors, which I really appreciate. And after showing this to you guys, because it has not been released to the general public or to Tucson Audubon members or fans at all yet, it's only been shared with you, the volunteers and surveyors so far. But after we have our premiere here, I will be sharing this on social media as well as other outlets and with the Coronado National Forest and other groups to make sure that they can see this data too. So this is what you guys have mostly seen. It's the map. So if you go to that Arizona Important Bird Areas website, you can always access past data too, as well as will be current data on this resources tab. And this will look awfully familiar to you guys because this is where we organize the survey. So we have the Elegant Trogon page, which has info about the surveys. This is our resources for doing the actual surveys. But towards the bottom, I have these sub pages that are like child pages of this parent page for Trogons that has the results from 2020 down to 2017. Now, further back results I do have, but I don't have them necessarily on the website. But starting in 2017, I started posting results on the website, and the 2021 will be here later today and will be shared with everybody. But what's it gonna say? What it's gonna say is this. So this is our interactive map. So you'll be able to find, I did send this link to all of you guys, but you'll be able to find it at that same website resource if you ever want to share it with anybody. But this map is about to, I will change the permissions to public soon. But this shows where we had Elegant Trogons, but it also shows routes that were surveyed that had negative detections. And this is really important in a bird survey, is to show where we looked and can confirm that there weren't any Trogons. It's not that there's Trogons there and we just, or there could be Trogons there and we didn't check. These are areas that were checked by volunteers who took the time and effort to go over there and check, and they were not present. So this is incredibly important data, especially when you compare over multiple years. But because the way these maps work, where it's taking a spreadsheet and interpreting it into mapping data using coordinates, and then I set it all to cluster, this is the Santa Rita Mountains I'm looking at first, to cluster by type. So I have like, the little red ones are male, the little yellow ones are a pair of Trogons, green is unknown sex, and the purple's female. But these gray X's are 0. And I can see here that we had 40 routes this year, 40 routes that were checked that had no Trogons on survey day. So that is the highest we've ever had. And it's pretty interesting to look at this map and see where Trogons are, where they were found on survey day, but also very significantly see where they were not found. So see here that Sycamore Canyon on survey day in the Atascosa Highlands did not have a Trogon. That's got to be the first time in a survey. Sycamore Canyon is a really good spot for them. Now I do check eBird after the fact to see what's going on other dates within the same breeding year. And I have had a sighting. So someone did have a female on 6/19. So I have them in their own layer, and I'm using a different symbol where it looks kind of like a little chicken. And I have a link to the eBird checklist. So when you're looking at this map yourself, you may see more little dots being added, but they're in this separate layer of additional sightings, and they are not part of the official data. But it helps us it's good to catalog it here because it helps us paint a picture if we want to look back at this from the future and see what the heck happened. This was an incredibly unusual year, and I think we're all aware of this. It's extremely dry. Not only are we in a multi-year drought, we are having a very tough 12-month cycle where I'm trying to remember what Tim told me. Tim, how many inches have we had in the last 12 months? You were telling me just the other day. It's unbelievably low.
3.11 inches.
2.11?
3.11, and half of that was last June.
And half of that was last June. So we have had very little rain in the last 12 months, much, much less than normal. A normal annual cycle, at least in Tucson, is usually in the 12-inch range. So very, very little rain. And the Sky Island mountain ranges usually get a little bit more than the lowlands. But even so, I have never seen these mountain ranges so dry. And it really had an impact on not only how many elegant trogons we found in Southeast Arizona, but how they were distributed as well. So the Atascosa Highlands, which is the lowest elevation of all the ranges that we survey, and the first one we do, since it's lower elevation, we try to do it before it gets too hot. This one we did in mid-May had very few trogons. And then after that, we did the Patagonias, which the Arizona Important Bird Areas program has been to the Patagonias quite a lot over the last 10 to 12 years, trying to make this area into an important bird area, which it is. And so I've been in here a lot over the years, and I have never seen it so dry. Whole hillsides, all the oaks were brown. It looked exceptionally dry. I'm actually impressed and shocked there hasn't been a fire in there yet. That's how tinderbox dry it looked. But very, very dry. And so we did check our regular routes and had quite a few zeros. All three routes along Harshaw Creek Road, which is always usually in the past been a very excellent spot to look for trogons. Right along the road here, it's a nice riparian zone, had zero. And the only place we had trogons where Olia had one in Corral, we had some in Finley and Adams, which has a spring, which I think is incredibly significant. Upper Humboldt Canyon, Matt Brown had one trogon up there. And then we had a trogon in Endless Chain. These areas all have springs associated with them. And I think that was a very important detail of they had clustered into areas where the water was not dependent on rainfall. So again, this is very interesting, and this really helps us. I know it's very frustrating when we go out and we get a zero, no trogons detected. That's not very much fun, but it's almost more important data than finding a trogon, especially in a year like this where we have unusual conditions. So Patagonia's had some trogons, didn't have very many, did have some. Santa Rita Mountains, though, did a little bit better. We had a lot of negative zones in Madera Canyon. We have a lot of people checking different sections of Madera. We did have trogons, though, which is kind of cool to see. And I suspect this area gets birded so much that as the summer goes on, we will hopefully be able to add some supplemental eBird data sightings to these canyons. I do have a few canyons that birders have offered to check several times throughout the summer, because this is another thing I'm very interested in. I'm wondering, because it's such unusual conditions, if the trogons may alter their behavior to try to make up for this, if they'll just sort of arrive later maybe, or they're here but they're being less conspicuous so they don't show up on data surveys so much, and they might maybe nest a bit later to take advantage of monsoon abundance, assuming we get good monsoon moisture this year, unlike last year. So it'd be very interesting to see how that happens. And so if you are out birding this summer in any of these mountain ranges and you do come across trogons, I really would encourage you to submit that information to eBird, and that may help us get a more fleshed out picture of what's happening this summer with the trogons. Because we would find them with fledglings in like late July and August, but who knows what's going to happen this year. They could, if we get monsoonal rain, they might nest later, or they may just not have many pairs may not nest this season. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So the Huachucas is always the range that has the most of the 5 we survey. And we did indeed find some, especially in areas that are very, very lush, places like Scotia Canyon and Sunnyside. Lone Mountain, this is the one I did have a little bit of water in the creek, a little bit as we got towards sort of a higher uphill in the creek area. So I suspect there's a spring there as well. But for the first time ever, we had no trogons in lower Huachuca Canyon. Huachuca Canyon is an excellent spot for elegant trogons. And we had some in upper Huachuca, but none in lower. So the Huachucas definitely had some spots where we have always had them in the past that didn't have them. So very, very interesting. Now, the one that was the last survey we always do, and the last one we did this year, is the Chiricahuas. Chiricahuas is a very well-known spot for people to go see Elegant Trogon. It has a reputation of being a fabulous place to see Elegant Trogons. And boy, do we have a lot of people that helped with this survey and a lot of people that did not find Elegant Trogons. So South Fork of Cave Creek is a famous location for seeing birds of Southeast Arizona and Elegant Trogons especially. And we had one male about pretty far down the trail on South Fork and one female near the bridge, which is sort of right before you park to go down the trail. We had one in North Fork on Herb Martyr, and that was it. 3 Trogons, and the Chiricahuas on survey day. Now, I have seen a report in eBird since of one being in Rucker Canyon, so I'll add that as a supplemental sighting. But it occurred to me that we've had this happen before in our data, where we looked at a mountain range that had conspicuously fewer birds than some of the other ranges. And this is when we were doing yellow-billed cuckoo surveys from 2015 to 2019. We did those surveys and we had very few cuckoos in the Chiricahua Mountains, even though there was very suitable habitat around. And it occurred to me that I wonder if this is related. So one of the theories that we came up with back then as to why there'd be so few cuckoos in the Chiricahuas is that there's not very much high elevation sort of like Sky Island habitat directly south of the Chiricahuas. There are mountain ranges, but they're not very big, and you have to cross a lot of low elevation land if you're migrating north to get to the Chiricahua Mountains. So then I thought, okay, well maybe the Huachucas had more Trogons because the Trogons could island hop from nearby Sky Islands in Mexico and maybe get up to these mountain ranges, but it's more challenging in a drought year. It's more challenging to cross these very dry lowlands when your strategy, which Trogons, their strategy seems to be to travel at least part of the time during the day and forage as they go, feeding off the landscape as they go, that a drought year might make it very difficult for them to make it to the Chiricahua Mountains. So maybe they just stay further south in Mexico. I mean, look at all this excellent Madrean habitats, Sierra Madre habitat in West Mexico, where many elegant Trogons live. It's just this migratory population that comes up into Southeast Arizona at the great northern edge of their range. So for sure, there's a lot of information in this map that is really telling a very interesting story. And we may not get all of the pieces until years from now with climate analysis, weather analysis, looking at how other bird distribution other species have been affected by the drought and their distribution, which I'm already seeing people start to point out using eBird data of species that are spaced out in a very different way from normal, almost certainly due to these drought conditions. So this data was more important, I think, than ever. Everyone did such a good job. We got really, really good coverage of all these areas, and I really appreciate all of your help. So this is the map. It's now pretty final, but we will be adding some additional sightings as the summer goes on. So here's what you haven't seen yet. Here is a sneak peek of the actual data. So this is what everyone's efforts end up looking like as a spreadsheet. I do love a good spreadsheet. So here's each of the areas that was surveyed with totals, and this will all be put onto its own web page for you guys to be able to look at later. But we have each of the routes that was surveyed. Your names will not be on the website. I keep this just for our own records. I'm not going to put your guys' names on the website, but this is so I know who did what. This is everyone who helped. We let so many people help with these surveys, so many people. I really appreciate it. And I also had so many people here that brought people with them, which was really cool. People brought, a spouse or a friend or a sibling, or to come help them. And this was really very, very great to see how many people were in little teams out there surveying, and which really helps people find Trogons. It also helps with safety, and it also helps to sort of get people involved in the program. So thank you all so much for doing that. And we searched a lot of areas, and you can see how many zeros are here in the data. And it's a lot. It's a lot of zeros. But we also had some Trogons. So here's our overall summary page. I add to this every year, and this shows the data from year to year. And I'm going to say it since in case it doesn't show up very well in the video. But so for 2021, which is the bottom row of this table, showing each of the 5 mountain ranges and how they have changed over time. So this table starts in 2013, which is the year Tus Naudovon started taking over this survey of Elegant Trogon survey of Southeast Arizona, and we expanded the historical effort, which focused on 1 or 2 mountain ranges. We expanded it to be 5. So that began in 2013. And this year in 2021, the Atascosas had 6 Elegant Trogons, Santa Rita's had 20, Patagonia 7, a big hit in the Patagonias, the Huachucas 31, and Chiricahuas 3. So how that compares over time is our total is 68 Elegant Trogons recorded over all 5 survey days throughout all of Southeast Arizona. And last year, our total was 201. I have already put a note here on my table so that in future years, it's an explanation as to why this will be a tremendous dip in the graph. So 68 this year, 201 last year total. Chiricahuas had 29, which was the highest we'd ever had so far. So this was last year, the 2020 data. We had 29 Elegant Trogons in the Chiricahuas. It has dropped to 3 for this year, which was more of a drop than the other ranges, which make me start thinking about the fact it's maybe less of a habitat bridge to the south for them to migrate. The Huachucas went from 65 to 31 from 2020 to 2021. Patagonia's 26 to 7. And again, after seeing that range in person, I was, these numbers do not surprise me. I never ever seen it look so desperately dry. Santa Rita's went from 56 to 20, and the Atascosas from 25 to 6. So definitely a drop across the board, which is what I think we would expect in these conditions. But I don't know if these particular habitats got rain earlier this week, but Tucson sure did. So I'm hoping we might see some impacts of that in the future. So if anyone's interested in checking a specific canyon later, once it's monsoonal, let me know. It'd be really interesting, I think, to get some revisiting data. So one interesting thing that happened on the map was I had this here. Yes, so this was it was Joe, I think, went back. Yeah, Joe Alperti went back to he was birding in Gardner Canyon. I'm gonna mix it up with Gardner Canyon. And he sent me the exact coordinates of where he had Trogons on June 6th. And amazingly, they were almost exactly where. So the gray ones are his. I made them gray since they're a double count. His Trogons, and he had a male barking on 6-6 here, was so close on Gardner Canyon to where Tim had a Trogon on survey day. Look how close this is, where Joe had a Trogon weeks later. And then his other one he detected was 2 males barking at each other, 2 males arguing, 6-6, right in this location, right where Tim had 2 males on survey day. So this really blew my mind that I would have thought these Trogons might be wandering, perhaps looking for better opportunities. But from survey day, which was in May, to June 6th, they stayed put. Joe went back and almost was able to confirm, not knowing where Tim had Trogons. He found Trogons almost exactly where Tim had them. So that was very interesting to me. And so this sort of additional information is going to maybe help us really paint a cool picture of what's going on, because that really surprised me. Okay, so here's our data. So we went over that, and then this more detailed spreadsheet of exactly what route had what will be available online, sort of in a Word format. I've had a lot of trouble in the past trying to put tables on websites. Boy, websites don't seem to like tables very much. So I do it with sort of typing it out. So how the data looked last year for 2020, it will be very similar, where it's just sort of written out, and that's how we'll do it. So I'll get that up later today. And I just wanted to show it to you guys first. So the last thing I wanted to do with just me talking real quick was just show some of our photos. I really appreciate how many of you contributed to this Google Photos folder, where you could share pictures that other people could then see of really interesting, fun things that happen. So I wanted to sort of go through some of these things right now, and it's really kind of cool to see what other people saw. So this is one that was put up here by Alexander Hamilton, and this was in the Atascosas. It's too far from Ruby Road to reach the upper portion of Calabasas Canyon, where this must be from Ron then, because Ron did Calabasas. where I had previously found Trogons for the past 5 years. So I hiked from this road down to Calabasas, about midway to the border, and had seen photos similar to this in the past year, but did not know from where they were taken. So he found the spot, the photo spot for the wall construction. The Atascosa Mountains actually cross the border. Part of that mountain range is actually in Mexico. So definitely a lot of border wall building activity happening in this area. There was also recently a fire, but from what I heard, at least yesterday, the fire had been mostly contained. So this was definitely a very interesting photo that Ron was able to share with all of us. Very interesting view. This is the top upper portion of Calabasas Canyon near the border. It looks like it's been kind of dammed almost. Yeah, a lot of construction mess happening down in this area. It's a beautiful area, and once it gets some rain, I highly suggest, if you haven't been down to Atascosa Mountains, or Atascosa Highlands, which is just kind of centers around Peña Lake, is a well-known landmark in there, or Sycamore Canyon. These are really fun, beautiful areas to go birding when it's not quite so dry. This is a photo from Olia, Scott's Oriole in Corral Canyon, Patagonia. Very nice photo. Olia, beautiful male on top of the juniper. A squirrel, Arizona gray squirrel in Corral Canyon, Patagonias, which did have a Trogon, one of the few spots that did have Trogons in the Patagonias this year. I think just one female, I think, which is usually about 3 pairs in there. Nice view. Chris Rohr liked this photo. I'm not sure if I put it up though. I wish it would show me this a little bit better. This is the Patagonians, I think, though. Let's see. So it's not comment. Okay, Sue Carnett put this up. So this is the Santa Rita's then, right, Sue?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Wow, and you did have a couple of Trogons, so that's nice. Fewer than usual, because usually you get quite a few up in this beautiful, lush canyon. And then here's another photo from Sue. Oh, really pretty. Gosh, Santa Rita's don't look half bad from this angle. Even in a drought year, it's really nice up there. So Olia has this photo of a deer, young white-tailed deer on Carrie Nation, Madera Canyon, Santa Rita's. Wow, that is a young one. Look at the little baby. White-tailed deer eating columbine flowers. Aw, very nice. Taken with a zoom lens. And then looks like some ferns growing on a slope. Sue took this photo. How beautiful! Wow. There's lush drainage in here. It's gorgeous. Skylands, they are beautiful. Lovely. This is claret cup, probably cactus. Photo by Sue. Gosh, wow. Troy Corman took this one. Oh, look at a little pygmy owl in a juniper tree. Wow. I saw a pygmy owl in one of my surveys too, right at Santa Rita Lodge. I took a couple photos of Trogons. I was pretty lucky. I had a pair of Trogons in my spot in Madera Canyon, which is up the super trail, and right where the creek leaves the trail, that's my area. I always survey that every year, and it's a really interesting spot. And I usually have multiple pairs in there, but this year all I had was 2 males, which is a lot for this year with so few Trogons around, but I had 2 males, and they were acting very oddly in a way I never had seen Trogons acting before. I had read descriptions of this behavior, but I had never seen it. It's one of the 2 males I saw in this area in Madera Canyon. And these 2 males were very close to each other, and they were interacting with each other in a way that was very interested. They were definitely interacting, but they weren't being aggressive. So here's a photo of what I saw. So there's a male here and a male right here. They're sitting on the same branch of an oak tree, and they were chattering to each other. I did get a video of this, which I put up on YouTube, but they were chattering to each other. And it really felt like, from having read descriptions of behavior that's been documented, it really felt like these 2 males were discussing, having a little Trogon meeting of males on where the boundary between their 2 territories in this drainage was going to be. And it seemed like they were deciding this was going to be the boundary. So I watched this for half an hour, these 2 males just doing the low, quiet, trying to chatter to each other. No females, I didn't see any females. They were just chattering to each other. They kept flying, flipping around a little bit, flying from perch to perch every now and then, but they never flew at each other. They weren't fighting, which is something I have seen Trogons do in the past. They weren't doing that. They were just having an interaction that was very non-aggressive. And then after about half an hour, they both took off in opposite directions, and I didn't see either of them again the rest of the morning. I heard one way up a side range and assumed it was one of the 2 males, but I think they were discussing, it was a boundary discussion, and that is the sort of behavior I would expect to happen much earlier in the season when they first arrive, more like mid-April in a typical year. So I think these birds had maybe not been in the drainage that long. And this matches what we saw with a lot of species this year, where birds arrived very late in the season, much later than normal. Our Lucy's warblers were late. The birds we actually really keep an eye on, Lucy's were very late, and elf owls were very late this year. So I think we were seeing behavior that normally would have happened earlier in the season because the birds are so delayed. So that was very, very cool, very interesting. That's another photo I got. These males didn't care about us at all. We hadn't played any playback because they were just right there, and they didn't really care. And it's the best photos of Trogons I've ever gotten, because they were just totally worried about talking to each other and didn't really care that we were right there looking at them. That was pretty fun. And then this is the pygmy owl I saw at Santa Rita Lodge on the way out when I was looking for the barrel-line hummingbird that I did not find. But it's all this really cool pygmy owl come in and land in a juniper tree. That's pretty fun. All right, so who took this cool photo? This is also Sue. Sue kind of has this photo here of, what do you think, Sue? What do you think it is? A cat?
It was a hooded skunk, according to iNaturalist.
Ooh, a skunk skull. Very cool. Wow, beautiful photo. That is cool. Hooded skunk. Wow. And Chris Rohr got this photo. He did a section of Garden Canyon in the Huachucas. And that's a very nice photo. Wow. Oh, another pygmy owl. Wow, such a pygmy owl year. So Sue got this one.
Oh, that was Curtis.
Oh, Curtis got that? Oh, wow.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow, what a cool photo. Then we got Turkey, also from the Sue and Curtis team. That's a cool photo. So this was a nest that you guys found, right? This...
They seemed to be investigating it. We weren't sure. The male came out, the female went in, stayed in a while, and then the male went into a hole in another dead tree nearby and called from inside the hole. So we weren't sure what was going on.
That sounds like descriptions I've read of sort of touring. I've heard it called touring behavior. So yeah, there she goes, whoop, right down the hole she goes, where a male is trying to convince a female. It's just like a courtship behavior. He's trying to convince a female that she should stay with him and be his mate. And one of the main things, I assume she takes a look at him first and is like, maybe. And then one of the most important parts of that courtship is he will then actually take her on a tour of the cavities in his territory. And Trogon males, I think, fight each other fiercely for the best territories. And I think one of the most important things they're looking at is food availability, but also are there cavities on this territory? And they will fight for a territory that has good cavities, because she will make her decision whether or not to stay in his territory and stay with him based on what he can provide in terms of available cavities. So I think you saw that. I think he was demonstrating what he had, and she was, kicking the tires, checking it out, going inside, taking a look, and then checking out the next one. And so I think I've read a lot of people think who have done a lot of behavior with Trogons that it's pretty much the female that decides which one they're going to nest in. He will show her what he has available, and if she likes one, she'll stay and be his mate. So I think she was checking him out. That is very, very cool. I've never actually seen this in person, but I've read about this kind of behavior. That's really, really cool. Wow, a cool photo. Who got this nice moody? Oh, you guys also got this one. Wow, what a cool photo. Look at the light on him. You guys take such good pictures. I think this is Troy's, right? Yeah, Troy got this one of a female up in a pine tree, which is always fun. So in Sunnyside Scotia Complex and the sort of west side of the Huachuca Mountains, that's where Troy was. And that is a very, very cool photo. And I have seen Trogons in pine trees before. And the first time I saw it, it just blew my mind. You always think of them as sycamores or oaks, but they'll nest in pines too. And whose photo is this? This looks like a video. It is a video. Okay. I did see this higher res before, and it's a video of water. I think Chris Rohr got this one, and I understand why you would take a video of water that looks a little better smaller this year, since actual water flowing out of anything is pretty amazing and special for this year, 2021.
That canyon was really, really exciting. There was a lot of water going on, and the Trogons were active around there.
That is so cool. And this was in Garden Canyon?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, this is really cool. So here's another video that you got, Chris, showing water. It looks like flowing right out of a rock face, so a spring-fed creek. Just that is gorgeous, and of course that's where the Trogons are. Makes sense. So really nice pool of water here, water flowing out of the rocks. Cool. Thank you, Chris. That's really cool that you captured that. Also from Sue and Curtis here, more Trogon photos. Oh wow, they're such beautiful birds, aren't they? They're so much fun. And I did wear you can't see it in my camera, but yeah, I did wear my Trogon shirt today from the festival. They're so charismatic. No wonder they've been a logo for the festival. It's a really cool photo of a flower that Sue and Curtis got. There's a little tiny bug in the flower. That's really cool. And then some moss growing. Beautiful. Another Trogon photo. Wow, look at all this. Hawk, Cooper's hawk. Sue and Curtis. And the Accipiter in the forest. Troy Corman got this. Oh, look at this. It's a Rivoli's hummingbird coming up to a strap, an orange strap, investigating. Oh, sorry, hummingbird. It's not a giant honeysuckle blossom. Troy also got this really cool Trogon photos here. Lovely male up in a pine.
That was at our campsite.
That was at your campsite? Trogon wasn't at the campsite?
Yeah, I heard it every morning. It started at probably, I think I marked in there the first one we heard. Sometimes it started at 4:45 in the morning. It was calling.
Wow, that's so cool, Troy. Wow. And then Chris got this very cool. Oh, error. I saw it just a second ago, though. Come on, thing. Dang it. Well, you can kind of see it small right here, but it's a lovely forest scene, but there's a little Trogon right there.
And it was barking.
And barking kind of into the sun. Beautiful photo. Wow, really nice. Then Shannon Jenkins has this photo, a selfie while surveying. I like to take selfies while surveying too. I should put one up. And then Shannon got a lovely photo of Chiricahua, Southport. It's really nice. Wow. And then Chris got this one of a Grace's warbler and Juniper. I feel like I've seen a lot of them this year. Like a lot of birds are down, but I feel like I've hardly ever seen so many Grace's warblers. And then Chris got this one of a Trogon. This, of course, I recognize this. Does anyone recognize this? I've surveyed this area a lot too, Chris, so I recognize this. So this is on Fort Huachuca. It is in Garden Canyon. And this is at the petroglyph site, which is a site that often has Trogons right there because there's the slower detection of creek right there.
We had two males
Right here,
squabbling over a territory. Yeah.
So this is really neat. If you haven't gone to see this and you're interested in indigenous people's rock art, this is really cool. And it's right in the canyon and it's well signed. They have a little parking area and there's a sign that says petroglyph site, and you can walk up some steps and look through a chain link fence that's protecting it. And you can see, you can get within 10 feet of this beautiful art. So it's really pretty cool. And they have a nice sort of public access point there to see this. And then a rib cage from Shannon Jenkins, which is nice to sort of end on since it has been such a horrible dry year. So I propose, I see some stuff in the chat. Oh, good photos, everyone. Yeah, I agree with it. Let's all unmute. If you're here, go ahead and unmute. And if anyone wants to share a story or anything else that happened while they were surveying, you're very, very welcome to.
So Jenny,
Just like to say thank you, Jenny, for all the work that you put into organizing this, making sure we're out in the right places and compiling all the data. It's fascinating. It's great.
Oh, thank you, Sue. Oh, hi, Tyson. Are you here? Hi, Tyson. Yeah, thank you, Sue. That's very nice. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you guys' help. And I do try to send people to the right place. It does not always work out that way. It's happening less and less that people can't find the right spot. So thank you. As we improve our resources over time. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Sue, a lot. Thank you for your help. Now, Tim, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out why you were surprised they found Trogons where I said they were.
Where you said they were?
Yes.
like what kind of site?
In Gardner Canyon.
In Gardner. Oh, no, I'm not. What I was surprised was that they hadn't moved. That's what really surprised me. It had been several weeks and they were still in their same territory. And I was wondering, due to drought, if they would wander a bit more. And that confirms that they weren't, that they stayed right there. That was so cool that someone totally independent had seen them and reported them right where you had them. I thought that was I was so tickled by that. I thought that was so cool.
Both those sites are junctions where canyon forks came together. And that first one, I'd had them there the year before, right? Because that's where I pull out and park.
Oh, that's cool. That's
So-
just the kind of thing they like. They like a good confluence where you get kind of can double dip on how much riparian area you have. Since these guys do eat large insects primarily, especially in the breeding season, they eat a lot of bugs. So they need good foliage, just like the cuckoos. They need these good sections of habitat with lots of trees and vegetation. So a confluence is such a good spot for that kind of thing. Just more water. Would anyone else like to say anything about how their survey went?
This is Troy.
Hi, Troy.
In general, obviously everything was dry, and almost every bird that was in Scotia Canyon was quieter than normal.
Yeah.
And you had the dawn chorus, but they shut up much earlier than they normally would. It was almost every species, and so almost every species was less detectable. And a lot of the Trogons, we managed to get pairs just based on calls in every single territory that we've had in the past. But a lot of them, by the time later in the morning, just an hour or two after surveys started, they were all quiet. And we had to use call playback to know that they were there. And then they were very responsive with using it. Just if we just walked down through there, we would have missed many Trogons. They just weren't calling later in the morning that they typically are.
It's a really interesting point, Troy.
Yeah, and I had, we were camped for 3 nights in Scotia Canyon, and at our campsite, we've always had sulfur-bellied flycatcher pair right there. They were not there the first 2 nights. Morning of the survey was all of a sudden we had 2 of them right there, so they had just arrived that morning or at least overnight at that site. So like you said, a lot of different species were coming in late, and I suspect the Trogons were the same way. And I think they were quieter. Even the ones that were there were quieter than they normally were. So they easily walked past a lot of birds they just weren't. I think, like you said, I think a lot of birds are just waiting for the monsoons. They know with it being as dry as it was, even as they're migrating through, there was no hurry. Their food source isn't going to be there enough to even pull off a brood. There's very few birds that were actually breeding in Scotia Canyon. When we're usually doing these surveys, there's breeding going on for a lot of species, and there was not much going on at all.
Excellent. And you know what? I think you're exactly right. And I noticed something similar. That's for the same survey, for the Huachuca surveys. I was camping with Tice. Tice and I, we were camping in Bear Canyon, which is a little bit east of where you were, Troy, on the same side of the Huachucas. And we noticed the same thing, that the dawn chorus was incredibly brief and didn't have as many species as it normally did. So yeah, I completely agree. And that was actually put extremely well, that everyone was just sort of laying low almost, if they've even arrived by that time at all. So definitely desperate out there. And please let it be a good monsoon season this year. And I am interested. I wonder if the Trogons will breed late. They might. I mean, some of them are probably breeding on the normal schedule, but it'd be interesting to see if some of them just delay and wait for the rains, for the food to be available. Would anyone else like to share anything?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
On that Copper Canyon, it had water at the bottom, right there, kind of where I park on the road. And as I went up, it looked like a really good canyon. I mean, I didn't see any more moisture like I did last year, but it looked good. It was a lot more lush than any of the other canyons. So I was really surprised. You were saying, where there was water, there was birds, but not that particular one. But I was also wondering about going back, because I'd like to go back to that particular spot. And how late, if I was going to do another look, it should be pretty soon, or?
I think that'd be a great idea. And I encourage anybody who wants to do that. If you want to recheck your territory or any of these territories that get surveyed by someone else, you want to check the territory and see. I am really looking to get more information to see if they do something different after the monsoon starts. So Linda, I would wait till maybe after the first week of July, because it looks like it might rain then. Checking the weather, it looks like we're going to get some rain that first week of July. I would maybe wait till after that and see if anything has changed. And that would be great to go back and check that. I would really appreciate that. So the area Linda's talking about is Copper Canyon. It's kind of near, it's just east of Ida and Oversight Canyon, which is like this area we've been talking about, that Troy was talking about too. It's on the west side of the Huachuca Mountains. And this is an area that does have springs. So Copper Canyon did have water, and I passed it too, Linda, to leave the Lone Mountain Bear Canyon area to go east to head over to the Chiricahuas for the next survey. And I stopped and checked Copper Canyon as well, because there's so much water. There was usually waters crossing the road right there. It wasn't as much water, but there was still water coming out of that creek area. Now,
Yeah.
that is a pretty short segment of habitat, and it does go uphill really suddenly. So that could be why, if there wasn't enough water, or like if the neighboring canyon didn't also have food resources for a Trogon, it might not be enough for a Trogon to set up territory. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were seen, if you were to find one once the monsoon kicks off.
Yeah, and we're supposed to get more water like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It seems like I live in Nogales, and it's been skirting Nogales, but it's all the way around, you know, east and north and west of us, because you guys in Tucson got some, but yeah, I didn't get any down. I mean, I got 0.17 inches, so that's better than nothing, but the other, you know, it's just be skirting around as far as any reasonable amount of water. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I thought, well, I could go later in the week and see if they're coming in.
Yeah, I mean, in a typical year, the Trogons hang around through the end of August and September. In a typical year,
Okay.
we would often find them during cuckoo surveys through August. We'd find
Okay.
Trogons in these islands, often with fledglings, that they're spend time with the fledglings in these territories, teaching them how to be Trogons, how to hunt and stuff. So we often see them through, and I wouldn't be surprised if everything's delayed, like we see them into October type thing around here, especially if we get some good rainfall. So yeah, anyone who's interested in going out, or if you're just birding and you happen to run across Trogons, please let me know, or just put them on eBird, and we'll be checking eBird regularly to pull data on that as a supplemental layer for our map. Anyone else want to share anything? All right.
I'll just add a comment about, I think it was Troy that was talking about, you know, if you were just walking through your transect, you might not even know that there were Trogons there, or for us in Josephine Canyon in the Santa Ritas, we really weren't hearing or seeing very many other birds at all, except when we did a little owl tooting, a little pishing and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, birds were just rocketing over to us to see what the disturbance was. And, you know, there weren't big numbers of anything, but all these birds that were silent and practically invisible until that point was really interesting. The other thing that I noticed was that typically when we hike that canyon, we don't get very many black-throated gray warblers down in the canyon. They're up on the dry slopes. This year they were all in the canyon. And that's like the only place they were finding any hope of food. I think some of the oaks that were still a little bit green. So birds were really kind of working in different areas and very silent until we, you know, called them in. I felt bad for disturbing them, but we were censusing. So
Yeah.
we wanted to get some numbers.
Yeah, and they're clustering, exactly, Sue. And that's kind of what I was thinking with Grace's warbler. So Chris had this really cool photo of a Grace's warbler that we showed. And I have never seen so many in one spring, but I think you're right. It's because they're coming off the hillsides and they're clustering down into the drainages where they're
Down low, wherever the
find
food
food.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a desperate year, and I'm really I know all of our collective hopes and dreams are for for monsoonal rain, and hopefully we can that will happen, and it'll be very interesting to see how these birds respond to that. Great. Well, any last thoughts? Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your help for making this 2021 season a success. Our numbers were lower than normal, but the survey was an absolute success. We had very similar efforts in terms of how many people and how many routes to what we've had in previous years, which makes our data very comparable over time, and shows that it wasn't that we weren't looking, it's that the conditions were different. There was something happening on the habitat. So I really appreciate you guys really braving these conditions to go out into this hot, dry May to look for these birds. And we did find some. but we sure checked really well. And that's what's really important in a survey. So thank you all so much. And this video, this has been recorded and will be available on YouTube for anyone who missed the meeting, or if you want to revisit any of these moments, it'll be available for you. So thank you all so much. And I really appreciate your help with these surveys and helping the important bird areas program for Arizona. Thank you all so much. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.